Alright, Legend of Korra, Book 4, Episode 2. And finally, we're getting some questions answered. Thank God. We finally get a majority of this episode being a flashback and answering some of my questions. And I'm glad that it answered the biggest one. How long did it take for her legs to heal? Did she go through a tough time? And she did. It's probably bad of me to say thankfully. It's like I want her to get better as soon as possible, but at the same time, she has to overcome some sort of hurdle. And I'm glad she did in this one. Apparently, she was there for about 3 weeks, still kind of contemplating about where she should go from here on out. What should she do? And, her parents are trying to push her towards going to Katara, which I gotta say is like, really? You waited 3 weeks to go to Katara? I know you're going through some turmoil, but I think that's like the first place I'd go. Is like, Katara, quick, heal my legs. She even states that she doesn't like the fact that she has to be out of the game. All her friends are out there, putting the Earth Kingdom back together. So it makes me question again, why didn't you go to Katara sooner? If I lost my legs and wanted to get back into the action, I immediately go to the greatest healer in the world, Katara. Like, as soon as I got there, it's like, off the boat, Katara, give me my legs back. But either way, she finally goes to Katara. They go through some, nice emotional moment. They start talking, and Katara mentions like, you're not the first Avatar to go through this, these tough times. In fact, when you compare to what I'm guessing most Avatar go through in their lives, your problem isn't really that big. And that's not saying it's not a big deal to her. I'm just saying that in the grand scheme of the whole universe, including all the avatars, you have to remember that this is not the only hurdle you're ever going to go through in your life. You have to constantly overcome multiple obstacles, and this one is just going to make you stronger. And I'm wondering if at the end of the episode, Korra realized this or not, because she's trying to beat other benders. She's trying to prove to herself and to the world that she can still be the Avatar, and she's questioning that. But either way, the rest of the episode finally goes into is still flashback on all the way to maybe where she just decided to go to Republic City, but then turn around and go to the Earth Kingdom, or just travel the world. And I'm wondering like where she sent those letters from. Wouldn't they have stamps like, "Hey mom and dad, I'm still Republic City"? Then why is the picture of a volcano on it? It's kind of weird. But who knows? Maybe she sent a letter from a hawk, or like, I have no idea. But one nice comedic moment that was actually in the episode that made me laugh was when she stopped by this little island to get some supplies, I suppose. This guy who owned the store, sushi store or fish store, I don't know, he had a picture of grown-up Aang still doing that little trick he used to do with his airbending. And that face he made was just like, oh, I see what you did there. I was like, okay, I like that. I like seeing that. Like, Aang, while he did grow up and become more responsible, he still didn't lose the entirety of his inner childhood. He still was a bit of a, fun-going, relaxed guy. I was like, all right, it's nice to see that. And the only part of the episode that started making me question what's going on was when Korra started seeing herself in Avatar form and kind of like attacking her or taunting her. And I'm thinking, is she going crazy? And even she's wondering, am I going crazy? And later as the episode goes on, she started to sound like, no, wait, it's real? Or maybe it's just a manifestation of her grief that her powers are manifesting in her mind. Like Katara said, the mind is more powerful than the body. Maybe her brain is just attacking her in some way and making her hallucinate, and other spirits can see it because they're in tune with her spirit energy. And maybe, I have no idea yet, we still need an explanation about that. But I'm wondering exactly, what is she afraid of? Is she afraid of her own power? Is she afraid of failing? It sounds like she just wants to be special again, and she's finally realizing, why is this happening to her? Why is the world constantly pushing against her like they don't want the Avatar anymore? And I did bring this up before in one of my previous videos, where I believe the world is moving on without her, and it's starting to feel like the Avatar is no longer needed. Really, when you think about it, the world, in a way, as it is now, is kind of coming together. I still kind of question the relationship between the people of Republic City and the spirits. I mean, even though it's been 3 years and that's a long time, the relationship between these two separate entities cannot be that good. It's not that stable. Someone needs to be able to, come in and keep up that peace for a while before it finally becomes stable on its own. That's probably where Korra needs to come in. But for right now, it seems like the world doesn't really need her. And that's ultimately what's tearing at her. She doesn't feel as important. Now, I can say that's a bit selfish, but thinking about how she was been raised from a kid, she's always constantly been taught that the world needs her, that she needs to be the one to keep the balance. She is essential, by herself. It's true as her friends are going to be there to help her, and she can ask for advice from a mentor or from Beifong or anyone else like that. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, she was constantly told the weight of the world will rest on your shoulders. Constant. You are the one who's going to save or protect the entire world. And that's a lot to take in. And especially even more difficult when the world that she's supposed to protect is constantly pushing against her, saying, we don't need you. So I gotta imagine that's pretty tough. Now we get to the best part of the episode. Well, I wouldn't say best, but definitely one of the most shocking. She goes into the swamp. I believe it's in the Earth Kingdom, which is weird. Did we ever... Yeah, we saw the swamp, but I didn't think there was a town right next to the swamp. Maybe that town was just brand new or something. But either way, she went to the swamp, and I think I saw a flash of light, so maybe it's the spirit of the swamp, or the spirit world, and it's the swamp, and it looks alike. Because what would be the flash of light for? Or maybe the spirit just transformed into a spirit form. But again, I have no idea. But either way, she's going through the swamp, and then again, her hallucination comes back and starts beating on her. Now again, I'm thinking there's no way it's real. Maybe she's just attacking herself. Now how that would work, maybe she's just punching herself and she thinks that she's being hit by rocks and water and fire. Or maybe she's somehow bending the water and fire all back at herself. I have no idea if that would even work. But she knocks herself out, and an old lady finds her, drowning in the mud or just resting on the mud, and brings her to this little cave underneath the tree or something. And when Korra wakes up, she's talking to this old lady, and you can see around, like, there's raggedy clothes, there's makeshift stove or refrigerator. Just this person has been living here for a very long time. And finally she gets some light from the fire, and there's like, oh my god, it's Toph. And I like how Toph is like, in a way we've met before, it's been a long time, Twinkle Toes. And that was just like, oh, that's beautiful. Not only is Toph badass, physically, she can an amazing earthbender, but now she's in tune with the spirits somehow. Maybe that's what she learned during her journey across the land. And she was just learning to become more attuned with the spirits. And she seems to be happy, which is weird, being isolated from the world, which I always wondered when we got those flashbacks of how she was raising her kids, like she was bound by responsibility and duty, and that's kind of the opposite of how she was as a child. Now she's no longer bound by those duties. She's happy being free and isolated from the rest of the world. So really it goes back to question whether Toph would have really been more bitter and more of a cruel, older woman if she had stayed to watch over her children or continue working with Republic City and the people. But for right now, she seems to be greatly content with living in the swamp, just shooting the shit right there, just like, all right, yeah, I'm here, I'm living here, it's great. I mean, I got food, It's always cool around here, and it's humid, but it's nice. It's a warm, comforting home, even by all by myself. But either way, it's Toph. I mean, she's always been a bit eccentric, and I love that about her. And it's great to see her again. She's alive. And when I really think about it, we saw a lot of everyone from the previous series here. Like, we've already seen Lord Zuko. We've already seen Katara. We saw Aang in flashbacks and in spirit form, and now we saw it in a little picture. Like, I'm still playing this little games. Like, all right. And then now we got Toph. Now I'm still sad that Sokka isn't here. Maybe he's already dead, because they hinted that he was in Republic City, constantly working with the council, and probably he died in service. I don't know, of old age. He was older than Katara, and she looks pretty old. So, who knows? But either way. This episode was fantastic. I loved it. There's nothing more I can say. Great episode. Can't wait where they're gonna go with with Toph. Maybe she's gonna give Korra a speech that inspire her to get stronger, or maybe she's gonna tell her to not worry about it so much. Toph has always been a blunt teacher, so she's not gonna hold anything back, and so I'm glad that she's here. She probably is going to be the one to knock some sense back into Korra. Stop pitying yourself. Stop looking down on yourself. Get out there and start kicking some ass like you used to. But either way, great episode. Can't wait for the next one. Till then, I'm Tony Dragon. Bye-bye.